My name is Colleen Gillis. I'm an attorney with Cooley, and I represent Brambleton on the Brambleton South Industrial Properties application that we're here to talk about this morning. I've worked with Brambleton for close to 20 years, but not nearly as long as my colleague on the call, Steve Schulte. Steve has been with Brambleton since before the beginning, before the first house was sold, before the first shovel was in the ground. He's been with Brambleton. So where I can say I may have had a hand in your house being approved, maybe being constructed, Steve can say I for sure was involved with your house being constructed and coming out of the ground. So what we're going to do this morning is we're going to go through the details of the Brambleton South Industrial application. This, as you may know, is the fifth one of our meetings that we've had with the community, all in this Zoom format. And this is our fifth and final one. We have been recording these. This one is being recorded as well, and they are posted to the YouTube channel so that people can review them outside of this. If you've got questions, if you have questions outside of this meeting, if you go, oh, we end the meeting and you've got questions, please send your questions to info@brambleton.com, and we will endeavor to put them together, if they're not already covered in the questions that we post on the website, we'll incorporate those questions. And so one last time, if you've got questions during this meeting, please go ahead and put them to questions. If you look in the chat, there is somebody who's identified themselves as questions. They're taking all the questions, and then we'll share them with Steve and me to answer at the end of the presentation. You want to go ahead and pull up the presentation? Great. So again, we're here to talk about the Brambleton South Industrial Properties rezoning application. This is the name of the application with Loudoun County, and specifically the designation is ZMap 2020-0003. Next slide. As we talk about this application, a lot of questions have come up with regard to where is this property located? And this is a map that we utilized in conversations with the Planning Commission, with staff, with members of the Board of Supervisors, so that folks understood where Brambleton is in its life cycle, so to speak, in terms of development, home sales, and build out. Everything on this map that you see is designated in red are lots that have been constructed and conveyed out. You probably live in one of those lots that are painted red, and all it just means is that developer doesn't control the ground. It's homeowner controlled. You know, obviously we've got some other apartments in here that would also be not necessarily homeowner controlled, but obviously landlord controlled. These have been conveyed out. The areas that are purple, there are two small areas that are purple here. One is on the eastern side of Birchwood, and the other one is up in the northeast corner. The areas that are purple are kind of a mix. They are not yet undeveloped. They contain lots that have not yet been sold and conveyed out, and they also include lots that have been conveyed out and might be homeowner controlled at this point. And so what that designation indicates is that it's mostly, it's on its way to being built out and complete. Finally, with regard to the homes, we've got yellow areas, and you can see that those yellow areas are in the northwest corner of the property. And those yellow areas are portions of the community that have not yet been developed in any way, shape, or form yet. So you can see that those areas are south of Ryan Road in that northwest corner. What is designated in green, you've obviously got the CVS and Tropical Smoothie parcel in the southwest corner. You've got Brambleton Corner in Birchwood commercial area, and then you've got the town center that's up here. Those are the commercial areas that are designated that dark green color. Finally, we've got the blue areas that are in the southern portion of the community. So parcel number 1 is located across the street from Birchwood and existing Brambleton. This parcel is currently zoned planned development industrial park, which means data centers would be permitted there by right. However, the property was replanned in 2019 by the Board of Supervisors for residential development. And as a result of this replanning effort, the developer is looking at rezoning the property. The developer realizes that putting data centers right across Evergreen Mills Road from homes doesn't make a lot of sense. And so there is a rezoning in place in processing with Loudoun County right now. We hope to be at the public hearing portion of that process later this year in 2022. Another part of that application is what's designated as Parcel 2, which is right across the street from the CVS on the east side of North Star Boulevard, also south of Evergreen Mills Road. Those two parcels designated for residential by the Board of Supervisors in that comprehensive plan, the vision for the county, and those two parcels are in that same zoning application together to approve residential. With regard to Parcel 2, there's also going to be, we're also proposing a modest amount of retail development within that. The parcel, though, that we're here to talk about today is Parcel 3. This parcel is as far of these three parcels away from existing residential, existing heart of Brambleton as you can get. And it's this parcel that's separated from the balance of Brambleton by that broad run floodplain that we're proposing to rezone today. And we'll talk about the details of it. Next slide. So this just gives you a different view of this parcel and its location. So what's outlined in this fuchsia or purple color is that same parcel. It is that Brambleton South Industrial parcel. You can see that it's separated by Belmont Ridge Road, which runs north and south, and you can see that it's located on the north side of Arcola Mills Drive. What I love about this image, though, a little bit different than the last one, is that you recognize where this property sits relative to the biggest landowner in Loudoun County, Dulles Airport. It's right in the flight path of planes that are taking off from Dulles Airport. And for this reason, we'll talk about in a second, the county changed the designation or clarified the designation of the property here for suburban industrial mineral extraction. That, in addition to the fact that obviously you've got the Novik Service Center, there are to the west of that transmission lines that run north and south all the way up to Route 7 and all the way down to Prince William County. Then you've got a number of industrial uses immediately to the east that are in Dulles Trade Center West. And then you've got data centers on Loudoun County Parkway. And then Google actually has a data center campus. It's right here. So when you look at what's in the neighborhood, it really makes sense for something that is in alignment with what the county designated it. Next slide. The underlying zoning for the property, though, also supports the zoning, the plan designation. So what this exhibit shows is you can see the area in purple, same parcel boundaries. There is existing PDGI. PDGI stands for Plan Development General Industrial. And that is the heavier, more industrial, louder, more noxious, maybe more incompatible with residential zoning district on the property. Then you've got CR1. CR1 is Countryside Residential 1. And if it falls outside of the LDN 65, you can do residential on it at 1 unit per acre. This parcel, however, is within the LDN 65. And if you're not familiar with what the LDN 65 is it designates the area within the community, within that area that is the loudest as a result of the airport flying overhead. LDN 65, residential is not permitted within it. And because this property is within that LDN 65, we're not permitted to do residential, even though that area that's green is Countryside Residential 1. No new residential can be proposed or constructed within this area. Next slide. Okay, there we go. So all of this area in this blue wash area was planned by the Board of Supervisors in June of 2019 for suburban industrial mineral extraction. You can see the place type name at the top of the slide, suburban industrial mineral extraction, for the reasons that we just talked about, the underlying zoning, the surrounding uses, et cetera, the fact that it's within that 65 LDN makes a lot of sense for why the board would say this is appropriate for suburban industrial mineral extraction. Next slide. And what does suburban industrial mineral extraction mean to the Board of Supervisors? The place type shows what the core uses are, and you can see those in the box on the left. General and heavy manufacturing and assembly, warehousing, contractor with outdoor storage, think mulch piles, lumber yards, things like that. Data centers, fleet and equipment sales and service, research and development, outdoor storage, public utilities, quarry, and outdoor manufacturing. These are not things that you necessarily want to see next to somebody's neighborhood, with the exception, we believe, of data centers, which are low traffic generators. They don't have trucks coming and going, competing for road space with vehicular vehicles. And also is, it also, doesn't create any school-age children that can compete for seats with your children, perhaps. And for that reason, it makes a lot of sense. Next slide. This also makes sense in this location because of the existing Broad Run floodplain. The Broad Run floodplain is shown on this slide in that blue color, and that blue color shows how that floodplain, which cannot be built in, cannot be developed within, separates the developable area on the site from anything to the north. So obviously everything that's to the north is separated from the developable area on this parcel by that floodplain. That floodplain, not at its narrowest point, also not at its widest point, is about 800 feet wide. So it's 800 feet of natural separation between uses to the north and uses on this property, and really does create a natural barrier between what will happen to the north and what will happen on this site. Next slide. But that floodplain is not just flat land without any tree cover, without any vegetation. What you can see on this slide in purple is areas of tree conservation area. What that means is we've got existing hardwoods, great mature trees within the areas that are purple, and we are committing as part of our development to ensure that those trees stay in place, that they don't come down during construction, that they don't come down unless they're dying and diseased. And the only time we take them down at that point is after consultation with the county. Now, what this slide also shares, if you can see that dark jagged line here that goes around the diagonally crossed area, that's our developable envelope, meaning we can't develop outside of that dark black line. We can't go north of it, up into that floodplain or the tree conservation area. We have to stay within this boundary. That boundary is not adjacent to the floodplain. It's actually 50 feet off of the floodplain. So there's at least 50-foot separation between the floodplain and that developable envelope. And you can see that it splits from left to right development on both sides. Now, when we were at the Board of Supervisors, we were committed to data centers on the east and any PDIP uses on the west. We were also asking for permission to do 4 million square feet of development on the east, and we were asking for 700,000 square feet on the west. Since we were at the Board of Supervisors, however, we have looked at what we need and how we can reduce the intensity of the development. So on the east side of Belmont Ridge Road, this 4 million square feet is now 2 million square feet. We've reduced the development potential in half. On the west, instead of 700,000 square feet, we're asking for 350,000 square feet. Additionally, given the proximity on the west to the homes that are on the north side of the floodplain over there, and also the irregular shape of the parcel and other things, we've also proffered out, meaning we cannot develop data centers or monopoles on the west side of Belmont Ridge Road. So we've eliminated the possibility of doing those uses on the west. What this means is that we've reduced the intensity of the development by half. We've reduced the traffic impacts by approximately half as well, really to continue to reduce the impact of our development in a significant way. Additionally, there was a question about substation locations, and we've committed to a substation, if it's needed, to be located in this northeast corner of the developable envelope. It's a great location because obviously it's far away from Arcola Mills Drive, far away from Belmont Ridge Road. The buildings will shield the view of that from Belmont Ridge Road. And then additionally, you can see we've tucked it up next to the tree conservation areas and next to the floodplain, again, providing that separation, providing that natural buffer. Next slide. When you look at a slide like that, you might go, whoa, just talked about trees and you talked about floodplain. what's the situation with your environmental and sustainable design commitments? So very first, we have no outstanding natural resources team comments, meaning we've satisfied all of their concerns from their perspective. And we've been there since before we went to the Planning Commission. So natural resources team has no additional comments. Why is this? Like I've already talked about, significant tree conservation area, risk car buffer, which is the river and stream corridor resources buffer. This is that 50-foot buffer I mentioned a couple slides ago to separate the floodplain from the developable envelope. So we're buffering that floodplain as well. Multiple low impact development measures. We're doing things that will reduce the impact of stormwater runoff, pervious parking spaces, latest habitat survey language to ensure that we're not impacting any species in here that need to be protected. Use of native planting species, so no invasive plant material being planted on site, and a mechanical equipment testing restriction. Next slide. But as they would say in a 2 a.m. infomercial, but that's not all. Additionally, we are doing building design standards, which we'll talk about in a couple of slides, parking lot screening, pedestrian and bicycle facilities, on-site employee visitor, amenity spaces. And then this one is particularly benefiting the greater Brambleton community. And that is, we're committing to a 300-foot wide broad run linear park easement, right? 300 feet. We're, Pro Bowl was yesterday, Super Bowl is this weekend. That's a football field wide commitment for a trail that will run through the floodplain. And so, can you still hear me? And so that will run through the floodplain here and create a great pedestrian or biking connection from here all the way through the floodplain, perhaps even all the way up to, you can even get all the way up to the metro with it. And that easement is being dedicated to Loudoun County Parks and Recreation so that they can link it in with the greater linear park network. Next slide. This berm is located north of the floodplain that we were just talking about. And so we wanted to show this. You can drive down Evergreen Mills Road right now and see this berm. The berm is between 22 and 24 feet tall. 50,000 cubic yards of fill was brought in for this. And then additionally, we've planted mature trees on the berm. Wish we had taken the picture in the spring or the summer when those deciduous trees had leaves on them, but you can get the sense for how tall they are and how many leaves they will have on them and how robust this planting will be in the spring when they finally grow out. And then this is another view from Evergreen Mills Road looking south. You can see the berm, and that's the primary view. Beyond the berm, you might be able to see, very far away, you might be able to see that there are transmission lines running right through the floodplain. You can barely see the wires, the overhead lines, but you can see those towers, the tops of them. So just to give you a sense for how much separation there is between Evergreen Mills Road and those transmission lines that run through the floodplain, we thought that this was a really helpful exhibit. Next slide. These are the design standards that we shared with the Planning Commission and with staff, and we actually shared at the board meeting as well. This is what was supported by staff. We heard loud and clear that Brambleton design matters a lot. And so we went back to the contract purchaser and worked with them on upgrading their elevations. Next slide. These are the new elevations that are attached to the proffers that will go to the Board of Supervisors later this month. We've shared this with the community so far. A couple of things that are huge improvements over what we showed in the last slide. One, you can see that there's a lot more glass on these buildings, a lot more glass, giving it an office-like appearance, giving it the sense that it's not a typical data center. Second, of significance is that we're using earth tones. Obviously, much of what you see in Brambleton is earth tone colored, whether it's the town center or elsewhere. And so we also brought it into alignment with kind of the color palette of overall Brambleton. Next slide. We also asked the contract purchaser to help us understand what these buildings might look like from Belmont Ridge Road and from Arcola Mills Drive. Before we go there, what you can see is here, this is indicating from what place will you see that first rendering. So if you were standing at the southwest corner of Belmont Ridge Road and Arcola Mills Drive and looking to the northeast, that would be the view you would see. And then B is looking down Belmont Ridge Road. But importantly, before we go there, because it's not shown on the renderings I'm about to share, the bright neon green is actually the berm that we are required to construct on the site. You can get a sense for how big it is. It's a minimum of 6 feet tall. We've estimated here that in some places it's 12 feet tall, so really tall, significant berm that will wrap around the frontage along Belmont Ridge Road and along Arcola Mills Drive. Next slide. This is that view from Arcola Mills Drive and Belmont Ridge Road. Again, it does not show the berm. It also is showing mature trees. This will take a couple of years to get to this level of maturity, but the base of these trees will be planted higher because of that berm that will exist at this corner. And you get a sense for what you can see beyond those trees, beyond the tops of the trees, is attractive. It is good looking. Next slide. This is looking south on Belmont Ridge Road. And again, the slide is missing the berm, but again, if that berm were there, you wouldn't see anything. And it's really, we think, important to share what you'll see as those trees mature and grow out. You also see that there's a multi-use, multi-purpose trail that will exist down here on the frontage as well. Next slide. And these are images that the contract purchaser prepared for a different site elsewhere. And we thought that it was important to use these, even though this is not cited on our site, on the Brambleton site. We thought it was really important to see that, again, this is just a really attractive building. When you strip away all of that landscaping, all of that berming, you really get a sense for how different these buildings look. These look like an office building that you would see on 28 or Pacific Boulevard elsewhere in Loudoun County. Next slide. But we also heard you, and we heard the community, and we heard transportation about the need for some improvements to Belmont Ridge Road. And so what you can see here are some interim Belmont Ridge Road improvements. This is additional striping, turn lanes, et cetera, on Belmont Ridge Road. Ultimately, our plan with that rezoning that's going in on parcel 1 and 2, we talked about earlier, we will be widening Belmont Ridge Road. We hope to widen Belmont Ridge Road to a 4-lane section. The reason why we're doing it with that application as opposed to this application is, as you heard me say earlier, the Broad Run floodplain in this location is 800 feet wide. You can see the width in this location. Huge, huge need for a bridge to get over that floodplain. We estimate that bridge will cost between $25 and $30 million, perhaps more. Who knows with supply chain and inflation, but that's what we're estimating it to be right now. And so we'd like to do that improvement in connection with the other applications. Next slide. We're also making significant improvements in Belmont Ridge Road and Arcola Mills Drive. So this is a better picture of all of the improvements here. And you can see how much additional lanes, how many additional lanes are being provided on Arcola Mills Drive. I think immediate, people can really understand the help here is that at the intersection at northbound Arcola Mills Drive and Belmont Ridge Road, we are creating a dedicated left turn lane for those folks that are turning from Arcola Mills Drive onto Briarfield. This is important because obviously, I got stuck here last week waiting for a car to turn left onto Briarfield. They were waiting a long time to make that happen, to make that turn, and all the cars were backed up behind them. And with that, I'm going to turn to the questions. If you've got other questions after we go through these questions, you can put them in the chat to questions, obviously, until we wrap up. But if you've got other questions after the call wraps, please put them to info@brambleton.com. Okay. Here we go. Okay. Number one, is the church and entertainment facility still being built by the barn area? Steve?
Yes, it's the performing arts facility, and we're doing that work. That's where the berm was shown earlier, and we're actually in that renovation process. We're still working on the final architecture, so we don't have that to share at the moment, but it's looking like it's coming out more than what we expected.
Okay. Number two, with the 2 million square foot reduction of the east side build out, why not put the original 700,000 square feet planned for the west side over on the east side and leave the west side undeveloped? So a couple of things with regard to that. One, there is a plan for development of that west side parcel by the county. It was acquired for commercial development. It's planned for commercial development. And it's the developer's intention to develop it in accordance with the plan and the acquisition. It is additionally, data centers are secure campuses. They are secure facilities. And what we're planning for the west side of Belmont Ridge Road, we don't have end users, we don't have people, identified to take that space yet. But those two uses, we expect that the stuff that will be developed on the west side will have community traffic, community consumers. Those community users are not permitted within the secure envelope for that data center campus. And that's the case for most data centers, that they do not let just anybody into that area. They like the separation from other users. That's part of the reason why this is so attractive. Natural buffer of the floodplain, and then they can really control who gets onto the campus from Belmont Ridge Road. Steve, you want to add anything to that?
Nope, that was good.
Okay. From a resident living on Belmont Ridge, have you done any assessment or estimation on what would be the daily traffic increase on Belmont Ridge Road? The existing Belmont Ridge Road is already crowded with traffic, and I'm afraid that this would increase traffic to 2 or 3 folds. I live on Belmont Ridge Road, and with the current amount of traffic, we already feel like living off some highway with so many cars.
So we have Chris on the line as well, who's our traffic engineer, and we can also talk about that together. But if we can get Chris, why don't we have Chris talk about that?
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Chris Turnbull here with Wells and Associates. Been working with Steve and Colleen for quite some time on Brambleton. So we prepared a traffic study for this development, and we anticipate a lot of the traffic that is using Belmont Ridge will be diverted when North Star Road is completed. So there's a shift in traffic over there. And then also we're going to be reducing the amount of traffic from the site because of what Colleen said about reducing the developable square footage for the west and the east parcels. We had to get into numbers effectively. The trips today are about 10,000 trips just north of Evergreen Mill Road. And that's on a daily basis, a 24-hour basis. And with the North Star built, the project and background development, because we have to include approved developments that are already in the pipeline, we anticipate the trips to be roughly 10,880 trips per day. So not much of a change from what it is today when these other improvements come online.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate that. On mute. Okay, don't go anywhere, Chris, because another traffic question coming your way. From the same resident living on Belmont Ridge Road, what are you doing on Belmont Ridge Road for any noise reduction with traffic? I moved here in 2011 and was told Belmont will be a minor collector, and the expectation was that North Star would collect all major traffic. I still see Belmont being the main traffic route. I'll speak to the benefit of North Star when it happens.
Yeah, with North Stars is being built at a higher facility, if you will, an arterial facility, and when right now, when people drive north from Route 50, they have to take a number of different routes, Stone Springs Boulevard, Loudoun County Parkway, and weave over and kind of meander through the southern below us, south of us, to get up to Belmont Ridge Road. And it's sort of an old habit because the road network's been there for quite some time. But with North Star, it's going to extend all the way down from Evergreen Mills Road to Route 50. And so that's going to provide a direct connection from Route 50 to points north. And so we are seeing, and the county has made some forecasts as well, that shows that there's going to be a shift in the amount of traffic that's running up Belmont Ridge Road, and we'll take a North Star. But I do want to point out that Belmont Ridge Road does handle a lot of local traffic as well. So there's still going to be some traffic on there based on a 4-lane divided roadway, but it should be reduced from with North Star connecting to that location.
And I also like to say that I even got a call from Shirley Contracting, who is the design build contractor for the extension of North Star last week. They've actually already bought pipe. They're in the land acquisition mode. I got the request for, the dedicated right of way that we're required to give them. So, after literally years and years and years, it really feels like the North Star project is about to come. Chris, I don't know if you know when it was scheduled in this county CIP, but it's going to happen. It's, the drawings are at 60%. It's going to happen within the next several years.
Yeah. I don't have an update on the schedule, but those facilities take some time, and with right-of-way acquisition, it does take, but we anticipate probably by 2026 is what I think they were scheduling that for,
Completion.
Yep. For completion. Yep. Okay, that wraps up the questions that we've gotten in the chat. If for some reason you've got something that in the last 4 words that Chris uttered, you went, oh, that reminds me, I've got one more question, get it in the chat right now. But other than that, I'm going to start my wrap up. And that is, this video will be posted along with the other 4. There is a frequently asked questions portion as well, and we are going to update them to the extent that these questions have not already been addressed there. We will update with these questions. And as always, even though this is the last of our meetings, if you have other questions, please, 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 please reach out to info@brambleton.com. We will get back to you with an answer. And we really appreciate you taking time out of your Monday morning to spend it with us. Thanks so much for caring so much. And I'm sure we'll see you again soon.
Thank you all very much for your time.